Welcome to Soapy Daddy's channel. Today, we're going to talk about a potential global financial collision set for late 2025. And this isn't some out-of-the-blue surprise. No, this is a perfect storm that's been brewing for a long time between two of the world's biggest economies, Japan and the United States. And it all kicks off with a very large, very predictable animal. So, the key player here is something called a gray rhino. Now, you've probably heard of a black swan, right? That's a surprise event. A gray rhino is the opposite. It's a massive, obvious danger that everyone can see coming but just chooses to ignore. It's like having a 2-ton rhino standing in the living room. Everybody just walks around it, pretending it's not there until it decides to charge. And that's really the big question we're tackling today. What happens when this specific rhino, one built on decades of Japanese money policy and a mountain of debt, finally starts moving? We're going to trace its path from Tokyo straight to the US market and see exactly what kind of damage it could do. All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll look at what gets the rhino charging in the first place, then the crisis it causes in Japan, how that crisis goes global, why the US is so vulnerable right now, and finally what the Fed is forced to do about it, and most importantly, what it means for all of us as investors. Okay, so our story starts in Japan. That's where the first domino tips over. But here's the twist. It's not some internal accident. In this scenario, it gets a big shove from the United States, which decides to totally change the rules of the economic game that have been in place for years. And the person doing the shoving? A brand new U.S. Treasury Secretary named Scott Bessent. Now, you gotta understand, this guy isn't your typical DC policymaker. He's a hedge fund manager, trained by George Soros himself. His entire career has been about spotting weaknesses in the global market and exploiting them. So when he looks at Japan's super low interest rates, he doesn't see a friendly policy, he sees currency manipulation that hurts the US. And he is not quiet about it. In this scenario, throughout 2025, he launches this huge public pressure campaign. He's on TV, he's giving speeches, basically telling anyone who will listen that the Bank of Japan has lost control and that it's time for them to get their house in order. This is a massive diplomatic shot across the bow. But it's not just talk. This pressure turns into a massive, and I mean massive deal. In exchange for lower tariffs on their cars, Japan agrees to a $550 billion investment fund for the US. But here's the kicker. The fine print says all new capital. That means Japan can't just shuffle some numbers around. They have to actually sell other assets, like their huge holdings of US government bonds, to come up with the cash. It's an engineered capital flight, plain and simple. And all this pressure creates what the source material calls a triple blow crisis in Japan. Bam, bam, bam. First, their bond market completely melts down. Yields spike to highs we haven't seen since 2008. Second, the stock market tanks because the era of cheap money is over. And third, the Japanese yen, which had been weak for years, suddenly gets super strong. That sounds good, but it absolutely crushes the profits of their giant export companies like Toyota and Sony. So, Japan is in chaos, but this is the crucial part. This chaos doesn't stay in Japan. It's about to go global, thanks to this kind of obscure but massive financial trade that's been quietly fueling markets for 30 years. It's called the yen carry trade. The idea is actually pretty simple. For decades, you could borrow Japanese yen for basically free, 0% interest. So big hedge funds and banks would borrow billions of yen for nothing, swap it into US dollars, and then buy US stocks or bonds that actually paid them a decent return. This trade pumped trillions of dollars of cheap money into everything, pushing up prices for assets all over the world. And this is where that whole free money party comes to a screeching halt. All of a sudden, Japan is forced to raise its interest rates, so that free money isn't free anymore. At the same time, the US is cutting rates, so the assets you bought aren't paying as much. The entire profit model just flips upside down. And the worst part? As the yen gets stronger, you have to sell more of your dollar assets just to pay back your original loan. The trade becomes a total disaster. So what do you do when a trade goes that bad? You sell. You sell everything, and you sell it fast. Investors are forced to dump US stocks, US bonds, crypto, you name it, to get the cash to pay back these now expensive yen loans. The source material has this fantastic line, "Bitcoin didn't crash. It was executed by the Japanese bond market." You see, this wasn't really about crypto. It was about the global tide of cheap money suddenly rushing out. So you have this tidal wave of selling coming straight from Japan, headed right for the US. But here's the problem. The US financial system isn't a strong seawall ready to take the hit. It's already got major cracks in its foundation and is way more fragile than most people realize. One of the big reasons for this fragility is that a huge cash buffer for the financial system has been totally drained. There's a Fed facility called the overnight reverse repo. Think of it as a giant piggy bank for the banking system. It once held over $2 trillion in excess cash. By late 2025, in this scenario, it's empty. The safety cushion is just gone. And at the exact same time, America has its own gray rhino waking up: commercial real estate. There's nearly $1 trillion in real estate loans coming due in 2025 alone. These are loans on office buildings and malls that were made when interest rates were zero. Now they have to be refinanced at much higher rates, just as the value of those buildings has completely cratered. It's a slow-motion wreck about to slam into the regional banks. And this, right here, is the collision. The external shockwave from Japan slams into this internally weak U.S. system. The banks have no cushion, commercial real estate is about to blow up, and the Federal Reserve, which has been trying so hard to fight inflation, is suddenly backed into a corner with no good options. They're forced to do a complete 180. And on top of everything else, the U.S. government now has a huge problem. See, Japanese investors are the single biggest foreign buyers of U.S. debt. But now that they can get a decent return back home, why would they keep lending money to the U.S.? They start selling their U.S. treasuries, creating a buyer strike. And when your biggest customer just walks out the door, that's a serious problem. So the Fed is completely trapped. The banking system is shaking, real estate is imploding, and their biggest bond buyer just left the building. The result? A humiliating pivot. In this scenario, on December 1st, 2025, the Fed officially gives up on its plan to shrink the money supply, a process called quantitative tightening. They just stop. But here's the thing. Just stopping isn't enough. To prevent U.S. interest rates from spiraling out of control, the Fed has to step in and become the buyer that Japan no longer is. And that means one thing: quantitative easing, QE. The money printer gets turned right back on. The Fed has to start creating new dollars to buy up its own government's debt just to keep the whole system afloat. Okay, so what on earth does all of this mean for you, for your money? Because this collision of forces, according to this scenario, completely rips up the old investment playbook that has worked for decades. The predicted outcome for the U.S. is a word nobody wants to hear: stagflation. It's the worst of both worlds. You get a stagnant economy that's not growing, dragged down by the real estate bust, but at the same time, you get high inflation because the Fed has the money printer going full blast to fund the government. In this new world, that classic 60-40 portfolio of stocks and bonds, it's probably not going to cut it. This scenario suggests a major shift in strategy. Long-term government bonds are a tough sell when the government is actively devaluing the currency. Instead, the focus shifts to real assets, physical stuff, things you can touch, like energy and infrastructure, that tend to hold their value when inflation is raging. And this really brings us to the final, critical question that this entire scenario forces every investor to ask themselves. When the world's most powerful central banks are no longer fighting inflation, but are instead forced to print money just to keep the government solvent, what does that mean for the future of money itself? In this new era, which assets will truly hold their value and survive?